Welcome to the Stories in EDU podcast, the show where we talk with real educators and hear their powerful impact. Their stories will grab you, inspire you, and show you the reach of the work we do. And now, the Bretzman Group presents your hosts, Josh Gauthier and Mandy Taylor.
Welcome back to another episode of Stories in EDU. We love this podcast because it gives teachers an opportunity to share their stories, and we know teachers have a ton of stories. They have great stories. I just saw a comedian a couple weekends ago who his entire act is stories from teaching that I think any one of us could probably do because we see that many things happen. What about you, Mandy? What's the funniest thing you've seen happen lately?
Oh my gosh, I can't pick one. There things so funny happen. I mean, we were doing elementary learning walks, so the coaches were we were at a different elementary school. We were in a kindergarten classroom, and they were at literacy stations, and this little girl was playing with Play-Doh, and she was supposed to be doing letters with the Play-Doh, and but she had made these two things that were kind of triangular. Anyway, so she's 5. And she brought them over to the teacher, and she goes, "I made lungs." And the teacher was like, because we're in there like observing the classroom environment and everything, and she's just like, "I made lungs." And the teacher said, "What are you supposed to be working on right now?" And she was like, "I made lungs." And she said, "I see that. Can you make letters?" "I made lungs." And she was like, "What does lungs start with?" Like, the teacher just kept trying to bring it around. And I thought, only in kindergarten that she's making lungs. I mean, hello, I'm clearly just making lungs out of Play-Doh right now. And maybe that's not funny, but when you work with elementary kids all day, like, they're always just doing weird stuff, and yet they learn the standards and learn to read and learn to and count and be darling self-sufficient humans, but she made lungs. Does that count as a funny story?
Amazing. No, that's hilarious. Like, I'm trying not to
really
laugh too hard over here.
It's really just a Tuesday in an elementary school.
Yeah. No, and that's just the kind of random stuff that, you don't really see on the outside that happens. What's funny, though, is that I see that same kind of thing every day in the middle school, and our guest today, I think, has seen more than his fair share of those things, probably even today, from middle school students. So I'd like to welcome on Mr. Brian Farrell. Brian, welcome to the Stories in EDU podcast.
Hi, everybody.
Can you introduce yourself a little bit for the listeners?
Sure. My name is Brian Farrell, and I currently teach at De Pere Middle School in De Pere, Wisconsin, and I've been there for 10 years. It's my 10th year. It looks like I should have been there longer, but because I look a little older, but we'll get into that later, I guess.
Excellent.
So people that have listened to the podcast for, in our brief history know that I have a middle school kiddo. So middle school teachers have a very special place in my heart, just because I parent one and really only see him awake from, 4 to 6 hours a day. And the toll that has taken on me physically, my mental health, it's just such a wow. Middle school teachers are so impressive to me for just the work that you do, how important it is, how much, I don't know. I just don't know how y'all do it. But so I'm excited to hear more about that kind of aspect of what you do, because I've seen how important teachers are to him and on his journey through school. So I can't wait to hear more.
Awesome.
One of my favorite parts about having Brian on, aside from the fact he's one of my colleagues and we've been working a lot together lately, but one of my big dreams of making a podcast, if I guess dream is not the right word, but in wanting to do one of the big things I wanted was getting teachers on it who weren't like the people that the Twitter universe knows well. So like, there's one podcast, I'm not going to name it, and great podcast with good aims, but literally every episode was some really big name person with a lot of Twitter followers, or was an edu consultant, and I in my thinking, I just thought, like, we have dozens of those in every school, and we need those people, and we need to hear their stories. And so it's awesome, Brian, that you're able to make it work. And you're not going to find Brian anywhere on Twitter. I'd love to get him out there someday. I think this guy may have invented TLAP. It's possible, which is Teach Like a Pirate if you're not familiar with that, and some of the stuff that I've seen. So so I'm really excited, Brian, and I'm glad that you're here. And talking a little bigger about why you're here, you mentioned a little bit at the outset that you've got a bit of a story to tell about how you even ended up in education. So I'm super curious. I think, in fact, I wish I would ask that question to all of our guests. Like, why did you choose to become a teacher? How did that happen? I know for me it was kind of straightforward and last minute-ish, but for some people it's different. So, Brian, tell us the story.
Yeah, I always had a great respect for teachers. I loved school. I keep telling people I played the game well. I liked my teachers. I liked, my friends in school. Of course, things happen, especially in middle school, that made me not ever want to go back to middle school, and yet here I am. So what I did is after high school, I joined the Army. I wanted to see Europe. There was no war going on. It was kind of safe time. So I was there and traveled and saw everything I wanted to see. It was really great. And then came back. I'm like, okay, now what? I have, the GI Bill, but no, I'm going to move furniture because that's a great plan. So I moved furniture for a while and then got into working with refrigeration. And, I was in a typical, just job. And I'm like, nothing wrong with that. But I told my wife, I said, I just can't see myself here for 40 years. And I said, what are we going to do? And she goes, well, she went to school for a little bit for education. She goes, well, I saw these sign language interpreters and that looked kind of fun. I'm like, well, I like foreign language. Let's go. So I went to sign language school at a technical university in Wausau and earned an associate degree in sign language interpreting. And that landed me in Green Bay Public Schools. And it landed me about 2 feet from where I realized I really wanted to be. Because as I was interpreting with, sign language and the whole thing, what the teacher was saying, I'm like, well, I could do that. And it actually sounds kind of fun. So I got in the back door. I never lined up by teddy bears and taught them how to, I never honestly thought I would be a teacher. I wanted to, when I was like a young kid, I wanted to drive a semi truck like my dad. Nobody in my family went to college. It was, nothing that's wrong or anything, but that my aspirations weren't college level. So I come in the back door and I always fear that someday someone's going to say, but you're not a real teacher. You didn't really want to be one since you were 5. Like, but I do now. So that's my story. I got on the back door and I love it.
Well, in a way, I wonder if that's more not authentic, but more kind of a neater, I don't know, like I wanted to be a teacher since I was 5, but probably more because I was bossy, not because I was passionate. Like I just wanted to be able to be the boss. And so I never wavered from what that wanted to be. I went to college. I started teaching when I was 21 and have taught, this is year 20. And it's been so interesting in the last several years as we move to less teacher-led classrooms and we're more facilitators and role, how that shift has kind of changed because I was like, wait, I used to want to be the boss. And now in this coaching position and in this, talk about collaboration and really student-centered classrooms, it's funny because my own journey has kind of taken this different thing. But I wonder if your story is even, I've met some fantastic teachers who were alternative certified. They had a business degree and then they met someone that started talking and they were intrigued by it. And I don't know that one's right and one's wrong. I think everybody's kind of path leads them to the place that they're supposed to be at the right time. So I don't know. I'm interested in how also that experience that you had, in the military and things like that kind of brought you to a broader perspective than people who go to, education classes right as their early 20s as they're, going to start this. So I don't know. I'm interested in that perspective too.
No, that's a good perspective. I wonder what I would have been like had I gone right in as, right out of school like you did. And I do, on my side, I always admire people who were like, I always wanted to be a teacher. And I really look up to those people. I'm like, wow, you never wavered. You wanted to do this since day one. That's awesome. you know, I feel a little guilty that I kind of wanted to do it later. But I mean, how many careers do we have in a life? You know, people have
Right.
like 7 or 8 career changes. So I finally picked the right one right at the end. Graduated when I was 39. Like, okay. So I agree. There's no other place I'd rather be than at middle school.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, as the mom of a middle schooler, people that can actually say that are such a blessing, because I just know how, I mean, I feel that way about elementary school, and most middle school teachers I talk to are like, not me, you know, that everybody is, they're like, if I had to be, I made lungs, you know, like, no, thank you. But, you know, it's just definitely everybody kind of has this place that they're
Right.
supposed to be.
Right.
I'm so thankful that, you know, my kid has people around him that want to be there and that are, you know, in the right place, because he needs those people in his life, you know, other than my influence, you know.
Well, the middle is really just, I mean, they're still kids, yet they're growing up. I mean, and we'll talk about this later with this thing that we're going to talk about, but I had a big open space in my classroom, and I had 4 boys just spinning on their backs just because there was an open space today, and they're still young, and just let them
Yeah.
spin. Why not?
That's what I always say about my son, is that he's very much a kid and very much an adult, but we never know which, are we going to have, you know, like analytical, talk about world events, social justice Parker, or are we going to have whoopee cushion Parker? Like, we just never know. And both of them are delightful in different situations, but we never know. And it's just,
you might have
you
the
know,
same Parker within 5 minutes. You know, I mean, the
yes,
different
yes.
files come over. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I just had you at oh, well.
Exactly.
That's the middle.
Wow, as you talk about this, I'm feeling very self-reflective, and like, I don't think I've graduated out of the middle yet. I feel like I'm still like that in some ways, but it might be
That's
based on
because
my
you're so
chromosome.
young.
Oh, yes, I'm so young.
Because you're a baby.
You know, can I lean my head forward a little more for everybody? Just in case you are listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, I have just slightly more hair than Brian has.
Yeah.
And he has a B on his license for hair color, and not blonde or brunette. You know, what's funny to me is that, you know, Brian, you mentioned how you almost feel like you've got that imposter syndrome about being a teacher, that you didn't want to be a teacher forever, and that you feel like there's some part of you that may not quite be like totally all there because it wasn't your main thing. And you know, it's, what other profession do people have those thoughts? I mean, are there like accountants out there like feeling awfully insecure about like their ability to do credits and debits? Like, I don't know, you know, I wanted to be like a tour guide and now I'm doing accounting. Like, I'm not a real accountant. The other accountants are gonna see me out, and they're gonna, you know, make me do some more ledger work. Like, I don't know exactly what happens there with accountants, but the point of the matter is, I mean, it's as much as you know, other jobs are difficult. Like, being in the Army is not easy. You talked a little bit about your son who's in the Marines, not easy. Moving furniture, not easy. Working at Kohl's, not easy. You know, and then all the way up, working in business, being an accountant, being a janitor, being a CEO. Like, all these things are very difficult. Being a doctor, hard stuff. And I think that, you know, when we say teaching is like, should be revered, yes, we're not the only hard thing. But yes, we should be revered. But what other profession do you have that many weird like things that happen? You know, I don't know the answer to that, but you know, I feel sometimes the same way. I mean, I didn't choose to be a teacher until, and here are my motives. Like, they're pretty black and white. I was a junior in college. I was going in for hospitality and tourism management, but my wife was going to become a teacher, and we live in Wisconsin. So if you're going to do anything with tourism in Wisconsin, guess when that's happening? The summer. Guess when my wife has her time off? The summer. Do we ever want to do anything fun?
No.
I might want to consider a career change. So I changed careers because it would be more convenient for the person I was marrying. That's like, yeah, I kind of like it. Obviously you have to want to be a teacher a little bit to do it because you understand the amount of work that goes into it for, the amount of resources coming back your direction. But yeah, I that's why. And I kind of echo your thoughts too. Is like, is it the same? Am I not as committed because I didn't dream of this? But I don't know. I think that comes out in the wash eventually. So hopefully you get there. I guess I'll be honest. I don't feel that way, that I'm not a real teacher, but my path also was much different, and it wasn't my calling right away.
Sometimes I look at the classroom like, I can't believe they entrust these kids to me. Like, someone's going to come through the door, just fine. But yet, the people that I need to reach and I don't know what you want to say, whatever, like convince that are my students. I mean, and they're who I work for, and their parents too. But I mean, I need to do my best for them, and they can smell a fraud, they can sniff it out a mile away. So the fact that they keep coming back to visit, I guess, is a good thing.
Right. Well, and two, bottom line, I mean, it's the same thing with so much of teaching is not pedagogy. I mean, your content knowledge is important, your teaching practices are important, but ultimately we are in the business of people. Mm-hmm. And it's not just kids. We're in the business of the colleagues we work with. We're in the business of working with parents and helping, build partnerships in raising people, and then also just the rapport with kids in our own classrooms. So there is so much of teaching that doesn't have anything to do with teaching. It's communication skills and it's so multifaceted. And I think that's one of the reasons that the American teacher is always so exhausted is that we are doing very many different things with very little time and resources. And so it can feel sometimes very overwhelming. And only since I have left the classroom now and I'm working as an instructional coach, have I been able to see it from the perspective of someone that, like I'm doing this work with teachers, ultimately trying to empower teachers to find their own voice and really search out and seek the things that they want to accomplish with their kids and their parents. But then like I had a teacher today come and she just needed help like wording an email to a parent, and I was like, that's nothing that you get in college. It's nothing you get in a textbook. It's not even really anything you can get on Google or a podcast. She just needed to talk to somebody with experience. And we were able to kind of talk through and she was like, okay, now I have a plan, and that's just, it's so multifaceted. It's so huge. So, I think that teachers know that. Teachers know, but sometimes it's like, why am I so tired? Why can't I figure this out? And it's like, because you're thinking on 1,000 decisions that you made today,
Yeah, I've heard that. I forget what the number was, but you're right. It was how many decisions teachers have to make, and they're all important to.
I think I was going to say what I was saying is it is an actual quote. Like it was talking about they've done like research that average teacher makes of this many in the moment decisions, almost like a triage, like an ER doctor would, where you have to. Am I going to do this? 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 And even in the course of a lesson, it's like, are we going to go on? Are we going to stop this lesson here? Is this kid going to go do this? Or are we going to, that you're constantly making those decisions. And so then you have the space to doubt the decisions that you made.
Right.
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested.
It was pretty high. And then the comment was, no wonder we go home so tired. And
right.
You do, but you have to bring your A game at the middle school. You don't get the luxury of, gone are the days we hear, well, we're teachers just popped in a movie and work off the overhead and whatever. But even before class started today, we have something called Tunes for a Cause, and the students are allowed, they can bring their phone in. I guess it's not longer their iPod, right, Josh? That's not.
Most have their music on their phone now. Yes.
Okay. So on the phone, so they bring their phones in and they can get a sticker because because in our school, the middle schoolers are not allowed to have their phone. When they bring it in, they put it in their locker, shut it off, and then that's it. You get it back at the end of the day. But if they pay $1 during these special Tunes for a Cause days, they can get their phone and they can listen to the music. And also, secretly text each other, and maybe not so secretly each other in the classroom, right, Josh? That was the thing today. Well, and the other kid answered. Yeah, so one kid actually called a friend in class, and the other kid picked up. I'm like, what? No, please don't do this in front of us. So before the bell rang, here's my money, so you're getting through that, and then all these things, and then the room was really odd because of the lesson we had today. It involved me rearranging the classroom, so that was like, what's going on? And they all want to know what's going on, and it's like I can't address each individual question at the moment, and yet it's all important to them because they see the world like this.
Right.
Everything is important, and we'll get to that, but woo, it's a crazy start.
Everything is important, and I wish we could talk about everything, but of course, there's always the lovely clock, Father Time, that is coming for all of us always. Wait, that sounded awful. I'm sorry.
That was a good lead.
Not a good segue to where we're going next, which is the Game of Stories part with the Bretzman Group personalized PD Game of Stories cards. We do this every episode. We go through a card. We all take a minute to answer. Recently implemented the running clock so we can all actually see how much time we have to answer. All good fun. So we love doing this, and it's great to kind of squeeze in a little extra here at the end of great storytelling goodness. Brian, though, loved everything you had to say. I think it was interesting. I think it'll be a good message for the listeners to kind of hear about your path and how those things have made you the teacher you are today. 1 minute is on the clock.
Hold on. I found the quote. Just a minute. The average classroom teacher will make more than 1,500 educational decisions every school day.
Wow.
And an average 6-hour day, that's more than 4 decisions every minute.
Wow. It feels like that. It even felt a little more like that today.
Yes. Yeah. Well, here we go. We're going to find out a little bit. So here's the card we have for today. The card we have for today is Have Fun.
Oh, yeah.
Tell a story about how you had fun in class or with colleagues. What was the most fun you have had? What made it so great? What advice could you give to others to help them create a similar experience? There is something about fun that we like. Brian, you get to start. Your minute begins when you start talking.
All right. So what we did is we're in a unit called, it's a Egypt unit, and I want to create a memory because that's very powerful for students when they learn and they have a memory and activity. So we built a pyramid in our classroom. We literally moved the desks over to the side, and we got cardboard boxes out, and there was a Farrell, there was a head architect, there were 3 overseers, 3 priests that wrapped up the Farrell because he had sadly passed, and the rest were workers. So with cardboard boxes and tape and toilet paper and a mechanic's creeper dolly to move the Farrell and kids shouting at the top of their lungs, we made a memory. Everyone fit into a society role, and it all got done. We have 3 block hours, 3 pyramids were built. Even the goldfish was impressed.
And under a minute. Awesome.
I was I'm impressed with your time, how you brought it back before Josh had the timer, I would talk for 28 minutes about the card. So
it's not a joke.
We put the timer in place because of this girl.
The timer it's amazing. So I use it with all my students. It's only fair that it gets used on me.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Mandy, you ready?
Yeah.
Begin.
So I actually am going to talk about something that my own kid has talked about because I think that, so when Parker was a 6th grader, he had his 6th grade social studies teacher. So I think it's World Cultures maybe is the class. I can't remember exactly. But he would talk about this teacher. He started off, he had Hulk hands, like the big Hulk fists. And so he fist bumped every kid when they came into the class with giant Hulk hands. And then there would always be some sort of, like you were talking about, a game, a setup, a project. They would listen to music, whatever culture they were studying. He was able to come home and talk about very tangible, specific things you could tell it wasn't textbook. It wasn't, it was all multimedia things that the kids could really wrap their heads around. And then when we went to open house, he stood there and fist bumped us with the giant hand so that we could understand.
That's cool.
Excellent, Mandy. All right. Oh, no, I have to answer this question. All right, here we go. I'm going to go a different way. I could talk about the classroom. I'm not going to talk about the classroom. I could talk about doing geocaching with students, or I could talk about that time that I had all the kids Google me. That was kind of a fun lesson. But no, one of my favorite memories about having fun would have to be at a staff get-together. And it was at the end of school a couple years ago. So it was like school's out, kids are gone, then we go out and we hang out together at night and just have kind of one last hurrah before we wrap up. We played Cards Against Humanity, which is hilarious in its own right to play with colleagues. But the best part was playing with our principal, who is like a 60-something-year-old woman. And she was just in it, having a great time. Every once in a while I had to explain something to her that was on the cards, but I will never forget that. That was a great time of camaraderie with the tribe.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, it was great. I've got other plans this year. We just got a copy of Billionaire Banshee. I'm bringing it to the staff night in a few weeks, and we'll see if anybody wants to play. If the right people are there, it'll happen. And that game is great. We'll talk about that later. But I know, Mandy, you've got a Twitter chat to run.
I do. I am in a Twitter chat 1 minute ago, but so I hate to run because I still want to talk more to Brian. But
all right. Well, maybe we're
gonna have part 2.
Yes, and we'll get him on Twitter too at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a flip phone, Mandy, but it has a pop socket on it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stories in EDU podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, thanks again.